Good evening, everyone. Severe Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan John joining you for this edition of an 8 at 8 on this Labor Day. Hopefully, everyone had a wonderful Labor Day and hopefully everyone enjoyed this past weekend. Certainly some gorgeous weather and a lot of the beautiful weather just continuing today, right? And we'll start to notice some changes tomorrow. And overall, those changes will likely continue here over the next few days. And both in terms of temperatures, cloud cover, as well as rain. So multiple variables. And of course, we're going to be mapping that out here as we look at the weather to expect for this coming week. But of course, the start of the new month, right? For today, start of September. It is here, believe it or not. And of course, the question is new month, the same weather, right? Is it going to be the same? And I think in a lot of ways, yes, at least the beginning here, the first week and quite possibly the second week. Overall, pretty similar to how we ended August. And I do think there's good odds for some rain ahead this week. But in terms of the mainly dry pattern, that likely doesn't go anywhere. And this still looks to be a pretty dry pattern for the start of September as well. So in many ways, I think, yes, same weather. New month, same weather in many ways here. At least, again, for that first half of September, I think ultimately ends up very similar, where a lot of days are unseasonably cool. A lot of days end up dry. And that was the story at the end of August. Of course, not all days were unseasonably cool. We just had the real cool stretch to the end of August, but you get the idea. Just a continuation of that pattern that we've been in here as of recent. Now, here for the start of this week and for today as well, those highs back near 80. That's pretty much on par. That normal high 79 degrees this time of the year. So really on par with average highs this time of the year. So it is more of a seasonable start. And this will carry over going into tomorrow as well. Highs will be back near 80 as well as into Wednesday. But we'll notice that big cool down we'll get to in a minute going into this weekend, and it's a sharp cutoff in temperatures by Thursday, and those cooler temperatures stick around going through the weekend. Most days, yes, are likely dry, but with that cold front passage, we get that much needed rain. Not to say we're piling up inches or even an inch, but there's certainly some measurable precipitation, and I think we have good odds for at least more than what we had for past Thursday, which yielded even less than a tenth of an inch. It was measurable, but it was very light. We have better odds to at least pick up more than a tenth of an inch this time around from that rain on Thursday. And again, with this dry pattern, we will take any rain we can get. So let's jump into things, shall we? And thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of Nate at 8. Those temperatures for your Labor Day, again, topping off near 80 degrees, now cooling through the 70s, 60s, and pretty typical what we've seen as of recent. These temperatures drop off pretty quickly going throughout the evening. So no exception to what we're going to deal with for this evening. And lows will be back in the 50s. And we're getting more of a cool start again to tomorrow. Again, like I mentioned, pretty much on par with where we're typically at with those highs for the start of September. Those lows, though, this morning were well below that average low, which still resides closer to 60. And even tomorrow morning, we're going to be below that average low, still mid-lower 50s likely for tomorrow morning. So trending a little cool on the low side, but for highs, pretty much on par with where we're at typically for this time of the year. Now, by the end of this month, the average high is cools to about 70, average low near 50. We continue to lose daylight going throughout the month. The sunsets, they're just getting earlier and earlier this time of the year. 7:05 is that sunset by the end of this month. Full moon, not too far from now, coming up on the 7th is our full moon. The warmest temperature, 100 degrees. The coldest, even below freezing, 26 in 1942. That's a couple of staggering statistics there in terms of how hot and cold it's been into September. The biggest wild card here for September is the average rain. And obviously, we're hoping we can pick up more and a lot more than what we had for this past August. We averaged 3.21 inches, but the real wild card, of course, this time of the year is any remnants of tropical systems. So any remnants of hurricanes, tropical storms moving into our area. That's always the wild card this time of the year. Typically, September for us is pretty quiet. It's typically not real hot. It's typically pretty dry and pretty nice weather typically throughout the month of September. But of course, the wild card, again, those remnants of tropical systems. So another thing, nothing threatening here near term, but something to continue to monitor going throughout the month and into October as well. So August recap, of course, I don't have to tell you this. It was dry, right? And the total precipitation of 0.58 inches was half of the previous record of 1.16. Driest August on record, and what we had was half of the previous record of 1.16 inches. That was back in 1951. So a historic August for us here in the Ohio Valley. Not too much to write home about in terms of the temperatures. We did trend below normal by 0.7 degrees. It's been 2 years since we had a below normal August, and the last below normal month was this past May. So, nothing real staggering to write home about there. We did break what was a couple very warm months into June and July. So that is worth noting that August broke that cycle of what had been 2 very warm months for us here in the Ohio Valley, June, July. Of course, the humidity, you could argue, was even worse than those temperatures during that stretch. But cool and dry overall August overall. And again, as we go into September, it does look like we could end up, at least for the first half of it, a lot of the same as what we had for August. More unseasonably cool days than warm days, and more dry than wet days for at least the beginning of September. Today also marked the beginning of meteorological fall. Runs from September through November. Here's a look at those temperatures. On average, our highs, again, by the end of this month, is closer to 70. By the beginning of November, it's closer to 60. And by the end of November, even falls in the 40s. That's on par with those chilly mornings we've had as of recent. That's where our high temperatures typically are by the end of November. So get ready here. This is over the next few months, those temperatures come dropping down for our meteorological fall. Good evening there, Austin. Happy Labor Day. Today was another warm day. Can't wait to see what September brings for us. And we were touching on that, Austin, that it can bring, a lot of the same we've seen as of recent. Carol, thank you, Carol. Thank you for tuning in, all of you, for this edition of Nate at 8. So there's our temperatures. And as you can see, a lot of the same, right? Look at all those blues, a lot of below normal temperatures still. Not that we are, well below normal, really outside of what we have for Thursday. And, the big reason why we can trend so much cooler on Thursday is a lot of cloud cover and that rain and a cold front passage. And that's anticipated to arrive even in the morning hours on Thursday with that frontal passage. So the timing of that front, the timing of that rain can really hinder how much temperatures warm into the afternoon, maybe just into the 70s, but no, there's pretty good odds, I think, where a lot of us could even hold in the 60s for a high on Thursday. So it is certainly a sharp drop off from near 80 to upper 60s from Wednesday into Thursday. And from there, we'll cool then highs mid lower 70s Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll be seeing another cold front passage, a secondary frontal passage later on Friday into Friday night. Now, that one, not as much moisture present with that one, so maybe sneaking in an additional shower, but the most of our rain for this week will likely be around Thursday is when we're picking up most of our rain. Then going into the latter part of this weekend, early next week, is when we can see a return of more of those chilly mornings when those lows can dip back into the 40s. And that's when we start to lose more cloud cover at night. So up until that point, we're going to start to see, I think, more clouds mixing in at night, especially Wednesday night. And then on, we can see some cloud cover sticking around at night, which can keep those lows 50s, even closer to 60 Thursday morning. Once we lose that cloud cover behind that secondary frontal passage for the weekend, back in the 40s. So we can get some chilly mornings returning by the latter part of this weekend, and that can carry over into the beginning of that following week. So the temperatures, again, a lot of unseasonably cool days ahead for us, and there's some rain in sight, but still going to be tracking quite a bit of dry conditions, and we will likely remain dry, starting off with some sunshine tomorrow morning and then mixing with more clouds going into the afternoon. We'll repeat that again then into Wednesday. More sunshine as those clouds likely clear for Wednesday, going overnight into Wednesday morning, and then by Wednesday afternoon, more clouds will develop, and this is a possibility, I think, for something more isolated developing later Wednesday. But the real rain threat, just like his futurecast is showing, is going to hold off until late Wednesday night, Thursday morning. So there's our round of rain going into the day on Thursday, and we'll notice some of those showers. I think they can even stick around going into Thursday afternoon. By early Thursday night, though, we will likely dry back up, and outside of maybe an additional shower or two late Friday night, we look to be dry then as we go through the weekend. I do think models, in terms of precipitation amounts, maybe overdoing this a bit too much. I know models for today, we're showing hitting at closer to about a half of an inch. I'm a little bit skeptical to forecast about half of an inch of rain. That would be nice. We would certainly take it, but I could see a situation where totals are maybe some locations can reach at least a half of an inch of rain, but I could see where a lot of us are getting closer to Columbus, Cleveland, quarter of an inch, maybe even some locations less than a quarter of an inch. But again, I will certainly take anything we can get, right? And ultimately, I do think there's good odds for at least more than a tenth of an inch, more than what we've seen here as of recent in the past couple of weeks. So we'll take it. And I think there's, good odds for more than a tenth of an inch. I think decent odds for at least a quarter of an inch. The half an inch or more, I think's pressing it, but we'll take what we can get. It's certainly on the light side for rainfall amounts overall. And likely not going to deal with anything impactful coming our way. With this frontal passage, we could have a breeze, 20, 30 mile per hour wind gusts is certainly possible. So we'll notice with that cool down Thursday, Friday, some breezy winds. So just something else to note. But again, not anticipating at this time anything that looks to be real impactful coming our way. So as we jump into the long range forecast, and you'll see as we look into that 6 to 10, even 8 to 14 day forecast, as we look further out going into September. Notice what doesn't change here over the next couple of weeks, likely. Notice that's the brown. That's a dry pattern. So good odds that we're still trending drier than normal for this time of the year. And not a flip in the pattern either when it comes to the temperatures. Notice we're not in the orange or red here over the next couple of weeks. So it doesn't look like we're flipping the pattern. Maybe as we get to the middle of September, at least trending more normal for this time of the year. But it doesn't look like we're seeing a big flip in this pattern here over the next couple of weeks. And even looking into the second half of this month, there's no strong indicators that we can see a flip in the pattern where we're getting back to a wet and warm pattern, even for the second half of September. Obviously, we start to forecast weeks in advance, and it should be taken with a grain of salt. But at least, that being said, no strong indicator right now that we're getting a big flip in this pattern to get back to hot or very wet conditions here near term as we look ahead for that first half of September and even a sneak peek into the second half. So certainly looks like if you play some bets, then the safer bet is that continuation of not obviously a copy and paste of what we had at the end of August, but a lot of similarities, right? A lot of days where we're still more normal, if not below normal, and a lot of days where we're still mainly dry, not a lot of a real unsettled pattern, right? Not a likely not dealing with a pattern where we have high rain chances every day, or we're dealing with a real hot stretch of 80 plus or highs back near 90, right? None of that looks to be here for our near term. Looks to be just a continuation of some more cool weather in addition to some fairly dry weather as well. Renee's asking, do you think we will have a wet winter, such as snow accumulation? That's a great question, Renee. Something we'll dive further into coming up here in the next couple of months. We'll start to take a deeper dive into that winter forecast. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And then I will sure to give you thoughts on that. Haven't taken a deep dive into the winter forecast yet, but that's something we'll do here in the next couple of months. And then coming up, of course, we'll have a winter special coming up that will air as well, or on Thanksgiving, I believe, and then again into December. I believe it airs twice. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Yes, we'll start to, certainly this time of the year is when we start to take a deeper dive into what the upcoming winter could feature. So make sure to stay tuned for that, Renee. Hope that you have a wonderful Labor Day evening and enjoy Labor Day barbecue. Thank you, Austin, and you as well. Hopefully everyone enjoyed their Labor Day and had a wonderful weekend. Certainly the weather cooperating. This has been a nice extended holiday weekend for us here in the Ohio Valley. And again, even for tomorrow, not bad at all. Those temperatures very similar for Tuesday as well as Wednesday with respect to what we had for today. Again, we'll start to see more clouds likely into the afternoon hours than what we had for today and yesterday. And we'll start to see that potential. Maybe we'll sneak in a shower or two later Wednesday. But in terms of more of a guarantee, that's going to hold off until we get into Thursday. So be prepared, making any plans outdoors Thursday, especially in the morning, but even in the afternoon, I think we can have some showers stick around. A lot more cloud cover Thursday. It can be one more of those dreary days and just overall damp days and quite cool days. So that could be more of what we're dealing with Thursday. Outside of that, this is still some nice weather ahead and overall some pretty cool weather as well for this time of the year. The Gardens didn't do well at all. Sorry to hear that, Renee. Yeah, this has been a rough stretch. Ever since the end of July, and just now continuing. That's when we settled into that dry stretch of weather, and we've had very little precipitation. We're struggling to even get above 0.6 of an inch during that stretch, even including the very end of July. I believe it was the last 4 days in July when we really started to settle into that dry pattern, and that's just been continuation. We had 0.49 inches on one day at the Ohio County Airport. That's outside of that one day, it's been very slim pickings. So, and we've had some certainly needed rain, but it's been much more hit or miss from the few days that we've had that potential for rain. And that's the good thing with Thursday. I think it's less hit or miss. It's more widespread. So that's the good part about Thursday. That's why you see that higher chance as well, because I think that precipitation is less hit or miss, and it's more hit. It's more widespread rain on Thursday. I do. I don't think it's a washout Thursday. I don't. But I do think that precipitation is going to be a bit more widespread. And we'll fine tune the timing of that round of rain on Thursday with that frontal passage. We'll start to fine tune that. Could very well be more confined morning, midday hours, and then start to dry up later on into the day. But certainly something that we'll start to narrow down the timing of here over the next couple of days as well. So I don't think it's a washout, but some more widespread needed rain coming our way. And again, models have been, I think, really overdoing it, showing closer to 1/2 of an inch. I'm a bit skeptical to forecast that high amount of rain, but good odds for more than we had for the past couple of weeks. I think good odds that we can see more than at least 1/10 of an inch, and I think decent odds for at least about 1/4 of an inch of rain. And hopefully we do see more than that, but we will take what we can get. Will we get rain this week? Toby is asking, and yes, we were just discussing that on Thursday. So Thursdays are one day. Suzanne says, I miss the heat. And yeah, no hot day in sight, Suzanne. What we have here early this week is the warmest we likely will have for this week, and even looking into early next week. And that's highs around 80. So the warmest couple of afternoons are likely upon us now. And again, it'll feel similar to how it felt for this afternoon for Tuesday as well as Wednesday. No hot days ahead, just some warm days here to start the week, and then back to cool days going through the weekend. And overall, a lot of the same from last month to this month. A lot of dry days likely in the mix. And again, maybe spotting a shower or two later Wednesday. Rain is likely Thursday. Maybe another shower or two late Friday night with that second cold front passage. And outside of that, likely going to end up dry. Not a lot of precipitation, but at least we have Thursday. Some needed rain. We'll pick up at least some for this week on Thursday. And we'll look ahead in that next week, the next Wednesday and Thursday. Hopefully we can pick up some more needed rain around that point as well. So we'll see. That's pretty far out at that point, but hopefully we're rooting for the rain we can get. That's for sure. We're going to root for the rain that we can get in this dry pattern. No drought conditions yet for us here in the Ohio Valley. The latest U.S. drought monitor will be issued this coming Thursday. Abnormally dry across the area. We are certainly trending towards drought conditions, but not classified as a drought yet. But we'll see with the latest U.S. drought monitor if any locations are under drought conditions by this coming Thursday. And by this Thursday, it would include up to early this week, I believe Tuesday. I could be mistaken by that, but it will include what we've had up to earlier this week with the latest U.S. drought monitor issued on this coming Thursday. So make sure to stay tuned for that, of course. So give you the latest on where we stand if we are seeing those drought conditions across the area. Again, we're getting close, and as this pattern still looks to remain fairly dry, we could get there here over the next week or two. It's possible, and something we'll continue to monitor. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Again, pretty nice week overall ahead for us. A lot of what we had for today on repeat the next couple of days. Just more cloud cover, and again, that slight chance that maybe we spot a more stray shower in the afternoon and evening, but still some pretty nice weather over the next couple of days. Keep in mind, Thursday is going to be our less than desirable day. Pretty cool. There'll be a little chill to the air Thursday with that breeze in place, a lot of cloud cover, some rain, just kind of that more on that chilly, damp, dreary. Yeah, not good adjectives, but that's probably a lot of what we're going to see on Thursday. By the time we get into Friday and the weekend, though, we'll see more of that sunshine and mix. Highs back in the 70s. Get maybe another shower or two into Friday night with another cold front passage. Not likely as much rain, though, as what we're going to see Thursday with that second frontal passage going into the weekend. And then we look to dry up completely then as we go throughout the weekend with highs lower 70s. Another nice weekend likely ahead for us into next weekend with a mix of sun and clouds. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful night. You can catch me coming up News 9 at 10 on Fox 9, News 9 tonight at 11 for the latest. And as always, that next edition of Nate at 8 as well. So until then, I hope you have a wonderful night, and I'll see all of you on the next edition of Nate at 8.